Hi, I'm Amanda McKay for GameTrailers.com. We're smack dab in the middle of Gamers Week 2.0, and we're here to deliver your choices for the top 10 best and worst video games of all time. So if this cross-section of the gaming catalog leaves you scratching your head, you have no one to blame but yourself. You voted, we counted. Get ready for some shockers.
GameTrailers.com presents
10 best.
Mario!
All your days are belong to us.
Top 10 best and worst video games.
Worst.
When them see me like, and when them see you like.
Bad Boys Miami Takedown is the blueprint of how not to make a good movie-to-game translation. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence make the silver screen version sizzle with their witty banter, but here it's deteriorated into gratuitous, non-stop swearing.
Son of a what the?
Okay, it had the world's worst Martin Lawrence and Will Smith impersonators. I mean, it was like, I thought they were doing Bill Cosby for half the game. Where'd the cops go to shoot the watermelons? Oh! And the thing is, in this game, if you shot watermelons, that would raise your bad cop meter.
The gameplay belongs in the toilet as well, with terrible targeting and more glitches than a beta test.
It's a whole new level of offensive.
Number 10 best.
It's rare that it takes 4 tries for a video game series to get it right, but that's exactly the case with Resident Evil 4.
It's actually scary. And one of the biggest differences is just that Spanish peasants are slightly faster than zombies.
Always known more for cheap scares than tight gameplay, all that changes with a brand new over-the-shoulder view.
Put the camera behind me. The graphics were beautiful, making the GameCube look like an Xbox.
Lumbering zombies are swapped out for crazed villagers, giving the series a sense of urgency it never had. And it gives you the sense that Resident Evil 4 is one of the 10 best games of all time.
You just shoot everyone in the head, and their heads explode, and it's a celebration. It's a fantasy of light and color.
Number 9 worst.
There isn't a lot of software made specifically for girls, and the latest attempt at a gateway game is Barbie Horse Adventures.
Barbie's Horse Adventures? No.
When a lightning storm spooks a stable of horses, the always conscientious Barbie sets off to bring them back. What follows is a trip through the wilderness complete with spraying skunks, low-hanging branches, and cell phones?
We shouldn't touch the porcupine.
Barbie's like, what a cool looking horse. Oh my god, I love this horse. Like, I need some plastic slut to tell me how awesome my horse looks.
With awful gameplay and moronic puzzles, the developers might as well have called it Barbie's 9th worst video game adventure of all time.
We better duck.
Number 9 best.
Just like that new kid down the street that has a trampoline, a little game called Halo continues to help the Xbox platform make some easy friends.
Halo provided an experience in multiplayer and single player that, spawned one of the greatest franchises in gaming history.
It's one of my favorite console games for first-person shooters. I think it really hit home, even with me.
With enigmatic Master Chief as the lead character, the rebounding health meter is copied more times than a leaked exam. But what ultimately makes it a mega hit is its multiplayer.
People play this game, not just a single player, but they play it multiplayer, they play it over their friends' houses, they dress up as Master Chief.
LAN parties have become cool, a lot of nerds are finally scoring dates, and Halo finds itself inside the top 10 games of all time at number 9. Now if Peter Jackson could just finish the movie.
Number 8 worst.
Just like that $20 Prada purse for sale on the corner, Bubsy 3D is a cheap imitation of a quality product.
Bubsy 3D, it was a terrible, terrible clone.
You play as a smart aleck cat that, despite his claws, can't run in any direction other than straight ahead.
He's supposed to be like this agile cat, but he controls like a tank. It's like, I'd like to go over there.
In this blatant ripoff of Super Mario 64, the worlds look like painted cardboard boxes, and Bubsy can't go 5 seconds without opening his maw to spit out the same lame one-liners over and over.
Tubular! Ay, caramba!
Number 8 best.
A gruff secret agent, a winding story, and cigarettes?
Metal Gear Solid basically invented the stealth game.
It's the perfect formula to usher in the era of adult video games.
Metal Gear Solid was like this amazing breakthrough in stealth gaming.
I'm here to save you.
One of the first cinematic games, Metal Gear Solid's plot is 1 part twisting and 3 parts confusing.
You throw them into this crazy story with awesome weapons, awesome gadgets, awesome gear.
Captivating, inventive, and gritty. Metal Gear Solid is your choice as the 8th best game of all time.
It just spawned the stealth action genre, which everyone's trying to copy to this day.
Top 10 best and worst video games.
Hey, I'm Amanda McKay for GameTrailers.com. It's Gamers Week 2.0, and we are counting down your choices for the top 10 best and worst video games of all time. We're in the middle of the pack, but these next games are anything but average.
Number 7 worst.
We get signal. Lost. Main screen turn on.
What do you get when a small Japanese company tries to make video games but doesn't want to drop the cash for a translator? Comedic genius.
Zero Wing is a lame shoot-'em-up, notable for one thing and one thing only.
It's you.
How are you, gentlemen? All your base are belong to us.
The game is just really well known for its butchering of the English language.
Zero Wing for the Sega Genesis has one of the worst and funniest translations in the history of video games.
But aren't we forgetting about
Someone set up the bomb.
Doesn't Someone Set Us Up the Bomb deserve a dance remix too?
All your base are belong to us.
Number 7 best.
Grand Theft Auto 3 broke more than a few molds and faces when it debuted in 2001, creating a brand new genre and taking the overhead 2D perspective from the old GTAs into the third dimension in the process.
Grand Theft Auto. That's my favorite game of all time. Like you get to be your own person on it. You get to have the most freedom of any game I played.
Imitators have come and gone, but no game has perfected the formula like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
San Andreas really perfected the concept of sandbox gaming.
With a completely customizable character that changes according to your playing habits, San Andreas is the epitome of free-roaming games, and your pick for the 7th best game of all time.
So Grand Theft Auto is a great game because it allows thugs in training the opportunity to practice things like vandalism and carjacking and building criminal empires without ever having to leave the safety of their own government-subsidized housing.
Number 6 worst.
As the first home console game to ever be pre-ordered, Pac-Man for the Atari 2600 had many a kid chomping at the bit to eat some power pellets.
People were excited to be able to save their quarters and play it at home. Well, the game was a horrible port.
But after just a few minutes with the game, players are left trying to get the awful taste out of their mouths.
It didn't have any of the mazes from the actual game. Pac-Man wasn't even a circle.
With its minimal bloops and bleeps, improperly designed mazes, and crude graphics, this version of Pac-Man Fever makes a lot of people sick.
The guy that made the Pac-Man port to the Atari, he got $1 million. I want my 2245 back, Mr. Pac-Man creator.
Well, you gotta be like 45 years old to remember how much you hated that.
Number 6 best.
The Final Fantasy series is one of the most popular games out there. Its stories are filled with love and betrayal and oddly androgynous characters.
If anyone ever makes 10 games of one game title, I think it's pretty addictive.
The most popular installment of this beloved RPG is Final Fantasy VII.
The game took a franchise that was already popular but kind of underground. It took it into the mainstream. It utilized the hardware capabilities of the PlayStation platform to take RPGs into a next generation.
FF7 is also the first game to be driven by incredibly detailed cinemas and features an on-screen death that moves some players to tears.
Number 5 worst.
Oh boy! I'm so hungry, I could eat an Octorok!
One of the biggest mistakes Nintendo can make is to allow another company to develop Zelda games. Well, it has. The resulting bastard child is The Legend of Zelda: Wand of Gamelon for the CDI.
There are like 5 hardcore forum trolls that know what a CDI is. Everyone else is going, wait, there was a Zelda game on the CDI?
Yeah! That old Ganon's no match for the king.
Nintendo had their split with Sony. They want to make a CD-based game. They sell out the rights, all this kind of stuff. It was really under the radar.
The first mistake is to include full-motion cartoons, and the second mistake is to allow Russians with a limited grasp of English to write them.
Enough. My ship sails in the morning.
I don't even know if these qualify as video games. They were like interactive DVD menus. They just sort of controlled so stiffly.
Nintendo likes to act like this game doesn't exist, but it can't escape your spotlight as the 5th worst game of all time.
Best.
It's time for Tecmo Bowl, the original football game that started the sports franchise craze. Without Tecmo Bowl, Madden would just be another sportscaster.
What we had before Tecmo Bowl to when Tecmo Bowl was created, it was unbelievable. It was like the difference between like a horse and buggy versus a car.
It's the first game to include real teams and players. It's also incredibly easy to just pick up and play.
You could just take a player and just start running around the field for like 90 seconds.
As proof that a game doesn't have to be complex to be fun, Tecmo Bowl has armchair quarterbacks in the huddle at number 5 on our list. Listen up, Grasshopper. This is the story of Shaq Fu. An evil sorcerer has invaded Earth, and it's up to you to save mankind.
Shaq Fu, by comparison, makes Shaquille O'Neal's rap career look like a bold success.
You play as superstar athlete Shaquille O'Neal, who stumbles into another dimension en route to a charity basketball game.
Pretty much everyone hated the game, but you have to admit, you gotta love the name. I mean, Shaq Fu is just fun to say.
The only bell or whistle on this clunker is the ability to change speeds from normal to fast. Shaq Fu enters this dubious countdown at number 4, matching the number of championship rings on the big man's fingers. Lots of Mario games were in the mix, so we put the top 2 vote-getters together, Super Mario World and Super Mario 64.
The great thing about Super Mario World is that it understands what's good about Super Mario Brothers, that it understands that platforming is about jumping from thing to thing.
Its aerial gameplay and the triumphant debut of Yoshi and his acrobatic tongue all make it the best 2D Mario game in existence. And few characters jump boldly into the 3rd dimension the way Mario has.
Mario looks like Ron Jeremy. I don't know if that's intentional or what.
I still love Mario Brothers.
Super Mario 64 is the first game to truly nail 3D gameplay, with its adjustable camera and near-perfect controls.
Mario 64 was really the prototype 3D platformer.
It's me, Mario!
It's probably the best one ever, to be honest. Like, they just sort of got worse from there.
The combination of the two make for a groundbreaking concoction of jumping and butt stomping that seats the series squarely into the 4th position.
Top 10 best and worst video games.
Hey, I'm Amanda McKay for GameTrailers.com, and this show is all about you. Well, you and your clever opinion on what video games you love and what video games you hate. We're inside the top 3 and about to heat it up with a tempting trifecta. What are truly the best and worst video games of all time? You're about to find out.
Number 3 worst.
You might be a redneck if you like Custer's Revenge. This game is a huge embarrassment, featuring crusty cowboys taking advantage of Indian women.
It was a pathetic excuse of a game that really, aside from just, not even being fun to play, it was too easy. It was really easy to score in that game.
Your objective is to move from the left side of the screen to the right side, dodging arrows until you reach your goal where the dirty deed takes place.
In today's world, that would only be like 2 levels below Grand Theft Auto. It's not like you could kill any cops in this game.
Do yourself a favor and make sure you never let anyone see you playing the 3rd worst game of all time.
It pissed me off as a gamer to see a game like that, because those kind of games give the industry a bad reputation.
Arcades used to steal more quarters than a recliner, and Street Fighter II was the prime suspect.
People still love to play the classic Street Fighter fighting game. Even in tournaments, these kids line up to play the old sprite-based Street Fighter 2.
Hyper fighting is so well balanced that it's still the tournament fighter of choice 14 years after its release.
Say $1 a game, $1 a round, $2 a game, $2 a round, whatever, and that was a big part of that. I made a lot of money playing Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter 2 is so badass that they actually took one of their main characters, put a blonde wig on him, and then made you play all over again.
Its characters are still some of the most recognized in the biz, along with its patented battle cry.
Number 2 worst.
The movie that made kids cry back in the 80s made those same kids froth at the mouth for a video game depicting the sickly alien. Atari obliged and created the first film-inspired game disaster in the form of E.T.
And the part where the little sick space tortoise turd monster is dying, like, oh, I'd love to control the tears running down the little boy's face.
What it amounts to is spending hours trying to get the pole-necked freak out of pits. You might even say the developers phoned in this craptacular game.
E.T. was a game so bad that they destroyed and buried the cartridges in the desert.
But you've dug it up to place it as the second worst video game of all time.
The title screen wasn't bad.
Number 2 best.
Stacking blocks is fun for kids, but who would have ever thought full-grown adults would become addicted to it? Computer engineers from communist Russia, that's who.
Only people smothered by a repressive communist regime could find a way to make falling geometric blocks fun. And they did. Thanks, communism.
The original creator isn't making a dime from his idea, but the Russian government sure is.
Well, Tetris, I think, was actually one of the very first competitive games I actually played one-on-one.
For such a simple concept, it's hard to believe that it's still being released, basically unchanged to this day. As the epitome of elegant, timeless design, Tetris stacks up as the second best video game of all time.
Tetris, the block falling game, I curse you.
All of Superman's friends are trapped in a virtual world, and he must rescue them. It's just a shame that Superman 64 isn't there with them. Then again, even the Man of Steel can't save this legendary stinker.
Seeing Superman and the legacy of Superman disgraced by a game like this, it kind of makes you nauseous.
Clunky controls, an awful camera, and puzzles that monkeys can solve are just the tip of this dungberg.
The game looks like ass. Everyone in the game is identical, and they're constantly walking through doors. The physics don't even work internally. It's a really, really bad game.
Superman's special abilities operate on a timer, which is dumb for things like heat vision, and even dumber for things like flying. Well, that's if you can get them off the ground in the first place. You're supposed to be able to throw cars, but we wouldn't know because the game won't let you pick them up.
Nobody wants to do what you could do in Superman 64.
This one goes back to stores faster than a speeding bullet, and has the dubious distinction of being your choice as the worst game of all time.
Number 1 best.
Turning Zelda's 2D sprites into a fully 3D world wasn't enough for Nintendo. Instead, it had to go and reinvent the sword with Ocarina of Time for the N64.
It had great graphics and a great epic story. It was kind of like Lord of the Rings, but with Super Mario's kind of gameplay.
One of the boss battles is in the belly of a giant fish. You can't argue with that.
The thing about Zelda, though, is there's so many good power-ups. Like there's the bomb and the boomerang and the bow and arrow.
It really set the point for all new games that are coming forward to start using that model.
All of a sudden you're dropped in on horseback, you know, sword flinging through one of the greatest adventures of all time.
With tons of features that are now industry standards, it's a walking patent office. Lock-on combat, automatic jumping, traveling on horseback, and a story with plenty of twists not only make Ocarina of Time a classic, it's your choice as the best video game of all time.
Only time will tell what games will have to achieve in order to change this list, but when they do, you can be sure that your voice will be heard. I'm Amanda McKay, reminding you that for the latest scoop on all things gaming, head on over to GameTrailers.com.